I hear a lady screaming, "Help, help, help." I hear a man yelling, and then I hear her saying, "But I didn't even do anything." I put my ear back to the wall. The last thing I heard her say was, "Please don't kill me." And then it just got silent.
Evil is being sentenced here today, and that evil is you.
I have heard what the prosecutor said about what I did. I know what I did has affected the world. I know I can't change anything by what I say, but I am truly sorry and I regret everything I did.
What could drive someone to destroy an entire family in a single night? In February 2020, Milwaukee police uncovered a tragedy that left a community reeling. A young mother, Amara Jerica Banks, and her two little girls, Zaniya and Camaria, vanished after a night of grief, only to be found days later in a garage, their lives stolen in an act of unimaginable cruelty. The killer? Someone they trusted deeply, hiding a darkness no one saw coming. At True Crime Intel, we tell these stories to honor the victims and uncover the truth. Our heartfelt condolences go out to Jerica's family and friends, and we hope this story serves as a reminder to be cautious about who we let into our lives. Welcome to True Crime Intel, where we uncover the told and untold true crime stories that will shock you to your core. If you haven't already, like this video and subscribe. Stay with us as we dive into the heartbreaking story of Jerica Banks and the betrayal that changed everything.
Great sadness. I'm here to tell you we discovered the bodies of Amara Banks and her two daughters, Camaria and Zaniya.
A heartbreaking end to the desperate search for a young mother and her 4- and 5-year-old daughters. Through tears and prayer, dozens grieved the loss of the 3 young lives.
My heart goes out to you guys.
She didn't deserve this. She really didn't.
On Saturday, the suspect, 25-year-old Arzel Ivery, was taken into custody in Memphis.
And that led us to the garage in the 4700 block of West Burleigh.
Online court records indicate Ivery lives at the address where the bodies were found, but police say that's still under investigation.
Amara Jerica Banks was a light in the lives of everyone who knew her. Born on March 14, 1993, in Milwaukee, Jerica grew up in a warm, bustling household with 5 siblings. Adopted at age 5, she was cherished by her parents as if she'd always been their own. Quiet but friendly, Jerica had a gift for music that set her apart. A skilled violinist, she graduated with honors from an art school, her passion for the arts shining through in everything she did. But more than anything, Jerica dreamed of building a big, loving family, just like the one that raised her. At True Crime Intel, we're committed to sharing stories like hers. So if true crime moves you, please consider subscribing to join our community. Jerica's greatest joy was her children. Her daughters, Zaniya Ivery, age 5, and Camaria Banks, age 4, were inseparable, their energy and curiosity lighting up every room. They loved dressing alike, sharing everything, and were so close people often mistook them for twins. Then there was her youngest, Arzel Ivery Jr., a giggling toddler who brought endless happiness despite his health challenges. Jerica poured her heart into raising them, determined to give them a life full of love. Her relationship with Arzel J.J. Ivery, the father of Zaniya and Arzel Jr., was complicated. They shared a strong bond early on, welcoming Zaniya together, but chose to part ways after her birth. Years later, they rekindled their connection, and Arzel Jr. was born. But challenges loomed beneath the surface. Jerica's strength as a mother and her dreams for her children defined her. But a shadow was growing, one that would soon shatter her world. A devastating loss was about to push her family to the edge.
Jerica was an accomplished musician. She was a violinist. Nobody knows that based on the stuff that they tell you about right now.
In early February 2020, Jerica Banks faced a loss no mother should endure. her youngest child, Arzel Ivery Jr., just shy of his second birthday, succumbed to respiratory complications from severe asthma. Born with health challenges, Arzel Jr. had been a fighter, his giggles a constant source of joy for Jerica and his sisters, Zaniya and Camaria. Despite their tireless efforts to provide him with the best medical care, Jerica and Arzel Ivery, the boy's father, couldn't save him. The loss shattered Jerica's heart, but she channeled her grief into planning a heartfelt farewell, organizing a Lion King-themed funeral to honor her son's love for the beloved cartoon. The service, set for February 7th, 2020, was meant to be a moment of closure, a way to celebrate the light Arzel Jr. brought to their lives. But the funeral brought new tensions. Jerica had carefully planned who would speak, wanting the day to focus on her son's memory. Without her consent, Arzel Ivery stepped forward to read and speak, his actions igniting a fury in Jerica she rarely showed. "Why is he up there? Why is he saying it?" she fumed, her anger palpable. Her family later recalled it as the angriest they'd ever seen her. Jerica held Arzel responsible for their son's death, believing his negligence played a devastating role. On the day Arzel Jr. passed, he had tried to drop the sick toddler at daycare, but staff refused, noting the boy's condition and urging a hospital visit. Instead of acting immediately, Arzel drove to another daycare, stopped at a store for snacks, and left Arzel Jr. unattended. By the time he reached the hospital, it was too late. Jerica was devastated, convinced Arzel's inaction cost their son his life. A 2018 domestic violence incident, where Arzel was arrested but not charged, lingered in the background, hinting at a pattern of strain between them. As Jerica tried to hold herself together for Zaniya and Camaria, determined to build a better future, the stage was set for an even greater tragedy. One day after the funeral, everything would change. After the painful funeral of her son Arzel Jr. on February 7, 2020, Jerica Banks sought solace with her family. She and her daughters, Zaniya and Camaria, spent the evening at her sister's house sharing a glass of wine and comforting each other through their grief. Trying to move forward, they made plans for a brunch the next day, February 8th, a small step toward healing. Jerica promised to pick up her car and meet her family, her voice carrying a flicker of hope despite the weight of her loss. But in the early hours of February 8th, everything changed. Around 1:30 a.m., Jerica and her girls returned to their apartment on the 5,900 block of North Sherman Boulevard in Milwaukee. What happened next would haunt those who witnessed it. At 1:51 a.m., a neighbor heard a woman's desperate screams piercing the night. It was Jerica, barefoot and bleeding from her mouth, running through the parking lot, pleading for her life.
That big picture window, that would be my living room. That would be her living room. I hear like loud thumping, and I hear a lady screaming, "Help, help, help." I hear a man yelling, and then I hear her saying, "But I didn't even do anything." I called 911 when I heard her screaming, "Help, help." I come back, look out the window. He's pulling her from that door right there. He's pulling her from over there back into their apartment. I put my ear back to the wall. The last thing I heard her say was, "Please don't kill me." And then it just got silent.
Another neighbor reported hearing loud, violent banging noises, as if someone was being slammed against a wall. The sounds were unmistakable, a chilling sign of something horribly wrong. Alarmed, a neighbor dialed 911, urgently reporting Jerica's cries and begging for someone to check on her. Police arrived within minutes, but a tragic oversight derailed their response. The 911 dispatcher had classified the call as a priority 2, not urgent enough for immediate action, and vital details about the caller's location were never fully communicated. Officers cruised the complex with their windows down, listening for any sign of trouble. But after 10 minutes of silence, they left, unable to pinpoint the source of the screams. By morning, Jerica's family grew anxious. Texts and calls to confirm their brunch plans went unanswered, a silence that was deeply out of character for Jerica. Known for her attentiveness, especially to her loved ones, she would never ignore her family, particularly with Zaniya and Camaria by her side. Her mother, Valeria Banks, knew Jerica's structured routine and sensed something was terribly wrong. She'd never go silent like this, Valeria later said, her worry turning to dread. The family's concern deepened when they learned Arzel Ivery, Jerica's ex-boyfriend and the father of Zaniya, had also vanished. On February 9th, authorities launched a missing persons investigation, driven by the family's relentless pleas. As Milwaukee held its breath, the search for Jerica and her daughters began, but the clues they'd soon uncover would reveal a truth far darker than anyone feared. As the sun rose on February 9, 2020, the absence of Amara Jerica Banks and her daughters, Zaniya and Camaria, sent a chill through their family. Milwaukee police, spurred by the family's desperate pleas, launched a missing persons investigation, combing through every detail of Jerica's life. Their first stop was her apartment on the 5,900 block of North Sherman Boulevard. At first glance, there were no signs of forced entry, but troubling clues quickly emerged. A hole in the bedroom wall, about the size of a head, hinted at violence. A comforter was missing, and a blood-stained napkin lay discarded. Investigators brought in a cadaver dog, and their worst fears were confirmed when it detected traces of human blood inside a closet. Further examination revealed more bloodstains beneath the carpet, hastily scrubbed with bleach, as if someone had tried to erase their tracks. These findings painted a grim picture, and the focus turned to Arzel Ivery, Jerica's ex-boyfriend and Zaniya's father. Police reached Arzel by phone, as he was unavailable to meet in person. His story was vague and unsettling. He admitted to arguing with Jerica the night she disappeared, claiming it stemmed from their grief over their son, Arzel Jr.'s death. But he insisted he'd left her apartment and slept in his truck, going to work the next day without hearing from her. His tone was disturbingly calm, almost dismissive for a man whose daughter and former partner were missing. Officers grew suspicious when they learned he was planning to leave Wisconsin for work and wouldn't return until February 21st. Why was the father of a missing child so unconcerned? The investigation intensified, and an Amber Alert was issued for Zaniya and Camaria, though nearly a week had passed since their last sighting, raising fears that time was running out. With a search warrant in hand, police returned to Jerica's apartment, digging deeper. Forensic tests confirmed the blood in the closet and under the carpet, suggesting a violent struggle. The evidence pointed to Arzel, but concrete proof of his involvement remained elusive. Then, on February 15th, a breakthrough came from 600 miles away. Arzel's father, living in Memphis, Tennessee, received a chilling call from his son. Arzel confessed to killing Jerica and her daughters, admitting he'd burned their bodies and fled to Memphis to start a new life. Horrified, his father immediately contacted the Memphis Police Department, hoping to stop his son from causing further harm. Arzel was arrested that day, his demeanor eerily composed as he faced questioning. At first, he refused to reveal where the bodies were hidden, stonewalling investigators who traveled from Milwaukee to confront him. Under mounting pressure, he finally relented, directing them to a garage near his former residence in Milwaukee. The search for Jerica, Zaniya, and Camaria was nearing its end, but the truth they were about to uncover would leave investigators and a community stunned.
We begin here at 10 o'clock with continuing coverage of a story that we've been following for days now. This morning, an Amber Alert for a mother and two children was canceled when police say their bodies were found. Our Stephanie Haynes is live in the Sunset Heights neighborhood near 47th and Burleigh with the latest on the case. Stephanie?
Tom, they were missing for at least a week, and family says they disappeared the same day they held a funeral for Amara's one-year-old son. Now the family will have to grieve again, this time for Amara, Zaniya, and Camaria.
With great sadness, I'm here to tell you we discovered the bodies of Amara Banks and her two daughters, Camaria and Zaniya.
When Arzel Ivery finally directed Milwaukee police to a garage in the 4,700 block of West Burleigh Street on February 16, 2020, they braced for a devastating truth. Inside, they found the bodies of Amara Jerica Banks and her daughters, Zaniya Ivery and Camaria Banks, burned so severely they were unrecognizable. Autopsies revealed the heartbreaking reality. Jerica, 26, had endured a brutal beating before being strangled, while Zaniya, 5, and Camaria, 4, had been strangled in their sleep. The discovery sent shockwaves through Milwaukee, a community left to mourn a young mother and her vibrant girls, stolen in an act of unthinkable cruelty. At True Crime Intel, we share these stories to honor the victims, and this loss hit hard. Arzel's confession, detailed in a criminal complaint, painted a chilling picture of the night of February 8, 2020. He described a volatile argument with Jerica at her apartment, sparked by the raw grief over their son, Arzel Jr.'s death the previous month. Jerica blamed Arzel for their toddler's passing, furious that he'd gone to work after the funeral, as if he didn't care. She shouted, accusing him of failing their son, and Arzel claimed she grabbed a knife, cutting his wrist. In a rage, he grabbed her, slamming her head into the wall twice, leaving the hole later found by police. Jerica, bleeding from her mouth, tried to escape, her screams piercing the night as neighbors watched in horror. But Arzel dragged her back inside and strangled her with both hands, later saying she didn't resist, as if she wanted to die, a claim that rang hollow against the evidence of her desperate fight. Turning to Zaniya and Camaria, Arzel's actions grew even darker. He told police he couldn't let the girls live without their mother, a twisted justification for his cruelty. Entering their bedroom, he woke Zaniya, his own daughter, kissed her, and said, "Daddy loves you. Your mother wants to be in heaven with you." Then he strangled her. He returned for Camaria, waking her, kissing her, and repeating the same words before strangling her too. His calm recounting stunned investigators, who were further shocked by his reasoning. Because he'd brought his children into the world, he believed he had the right to take them out. Arzel considered dismembering the bodies but stopped when he saw a bone, likely leaving the blood traces found in the closet. Instead, he wrapped their bodies, drove through Milwaukee, and hid them in a garage with a broken lock at his old apartment. He doused them with gasoline, attempting to burn away his crime, but the fire didn't fully take. He tried again before fleeing to Memphis. The tragedy's roots lay in Arzel Jr.'s death, which Jerica believed Arzel caused through negligence. On the day their son died, daycare staff had refused to accept the sick toddler, urging Arzel to take him to a hospital. Instead, he drove to another daycare, stopped for snacks, and left Arzel Jr. unattended. When the boy began gasping, Arzel delayed further, and by the time he reached the hospital, it was too late. Jerica's grief turned to fury, her family later saying Arzel had effectively taken 4 lives. That blame fueled their fatal confrontation. But nothing could excuse the brutality that followed. As Milwaukee grieved, one question loomed: could justice heal a family's unimaginable pain? With the devastating discovery of Amara Jerica Banks and her daughters Zaniya and Camaria in February 2020, the focus shifted to holding Arzel Ivery accountable. Charged with 3 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, Arzel faced a $750,000 bond, his head bowed in court as the weight of his actions loomed. He initially pleaded not guilty, a stance that stunned Jerica's family given his chilling confession. His request to lower the bond to $2,000 was swiftly denied by a Milwaukee County judge, who recognized the gravity of the crimes. Arzel's defense took a surprising turn when he changed his plea to not guilty by reason of mental illness, citing a schizophrenia diagnosis and past suicide attempts. Hope for leniency flickered, but it wouldn't last. In September 2020, after multiple evaluations, a doctor determined there was insufficient evidence to support Arzel's mental illness defense. Deemed mentally stable and fully aware of his actions on that fateful night, he faced the full force of the law. With his defense crumbling, Arzel changed course again. On April 30th, 2021, as part of a plea deal, he pleaded guilty to all 3 counts of first-degree intentional homicide. Under Wisconsin law, this carried a mandatory life sentence, leaving only one question: would he ever be eligible for supervised release? His attorney argued for the possibility of release after 40 years, pointing to Arzel's mental health struggles and expressed remorse. In court, Arzel spoke, his voice heavy with regret.
It's life in prison for Arzel Ivery.
I know what I did has affected the world. I know I can't change anything by what I say, but I am truly sorry, and I regret everything I did.
For Jerica's family, the words felt hollow against the loss of their loved ones. On July 16, 2021, a Milwaukee County judge delivered the sentence, life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge called the crimes heinous, noting that the brutality against Jerica, Zaniya, and Camaria warranted no chance of release. The ruling brought a measure of justice, but for Jerica's family, it couldn't fill the void. Jerica's mother, Valeria Banks, shared a complex mix of emotions. She felt a pang of sympathy for Arzel, noting the absence of his own family at the hearings, questioning why they'd abandoned him despite his actions. Yet her pain hardened her views. Once opposed to the death penalty, Valeria now believed individuals like Arzel should never walk free. "This is the worst thing I've ever gone through," she said. "No parent should have to bury a child. Not only a child, but your grandchildren too." The courtroom victory was bittersweet, a step toward closure, but a reminder of all they'd lost. As the gavel fell, Milwaukee turned its gaze to the broader impact of this tragedy, seeking ways to prevent such horrors in the future. The loss of Amara Jerica Banks and her daughters, Zaniya and Camaria, in February 2020, left an unfillable void in Milwaukee. For Jerica's family, the pain was compounded by the recent death of her son, Arzel Jr., just a month earlier. The community reeled, grappling with the senseless brutality that stole a devoted mother and her joyful girls. Questions lingered about the investigation's missteps. A neighbor's 911 call reporting Jerica's screams had been misclassified as a priority 2, with key location details omitted, delaying police response. The Amber Alert for Zaniya and Camaria wasn't issued until a week later, only after the family's relentless push for media attention. The 911 operator resigned before an internal investigation concluded, leaving a bitter sense that earlier action might have made a difference. Yet, amidst their grief, Jerica's family found ways to channel their pain into compassion. Jerica had cherished her red car, affectionately called Big Red, a symbol of her hard-earned independence. As the family sorted through her belongings, they faced the question of what to do with it. In a heartfelt gesture, they decided to gift Big Red to Amani Smith, a mother struggling without reliable transportation. Amani, unable to work due to her circumstances, was overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you so much," she said, tears in her eyes. "I know Jerica would love that her car is helping another mother."
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much. I so appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Just take care of it like she did. That was her car.
The recipient of the keys?
I know that she would really be, would like the fact that her car was going to go to another mother with a child.
Imani, the keys.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Val.
Imani Smith, a mother who hasn't been able to go to work due to not having reliable transportation.
I'm grateful. I'm very grateful. I have my son. It's things that I need to do where I need reliable transportation.
A new start for her and some closure for them.
The act was a testament to Jerica's giving spirit, a way to keep her memory alive through kindness. The family also launched a GoFundMe campaign to cover funeral expenses and settle Jerica's estate, easing the burden of unpaid debts left by her sudden passing. Milwaukee's grief fueled a broader call to action. The city's high rate of domestic violence-related homicides, linked to 1 in 5 murders in 2019, cast a stark light on the epidemic that claimed Jerica and her girls. Community leaders and organizations like the Sojourner Family Peace Center rallied, urging stronger support for victims and better prevention measures. Jerica's story became a rallying cry, a reminder that domestic violence could lurk behind closed doors, even in families full of love. The Banks family hoped their loss would inspire others to act, to check on loved ones, and to advocate for change. Their resilience and generosity in the face of unimaginable sorrow showed Milwaukee's strength, but the scars of this tragedy would linger, pushing the community to do better. Amara Jerica Banks was more than a victim. She was a talented violinist, a devoted mother, and a dreamer who filled the world with love. Her daughters, Zaniya Ivery and Camaria Banks, were bursts of joy, their laughter and curiosity a gift to everyone who knew them. Their lives, cut short in February 2020, remind us at True Crime Intel why we tell these stories. To honor those lost and to fight for a world where such tragedies don't happen. Jerica's story is a stark warning of the dangers of domestic violence, a silent epidemic that can hide behind the closest relationships. In Milwaukee, where domestic violence fuels a fifth of homicides, her loss demands action. If you or someone you know needs help, reach out. The Sojourner Family Peace Center is there at 414-933-2722, the Milwaukee Women's Center at 414-671-6140, and the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-7233. We're left with questions about Arzel Ivery's actions. Was his violence driven by mental health struggles, as he claimed, or something darker? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective could spark a conversation that helps someone else. At True Crime Intel, we're committed to bringing you stories that matter. So if Jerica's story moved you, please like this video and subscribe to join our community. Share it to spread awareness, because every view could reach someone who needs to hear this message. Let's keep Jerica, Zaniya, and Camaria's memories alive by advocating for change and supporting survivors. Their lives deserve so much more, and their legacy can inspire us to make a difference. In memory of Amara Jerica Banks, Zaniya Ivery, and Camaria Banks, thank you for watching. Until next time, take care, and let's work together to end domestic violence.